All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and continue to admit people, but we will get started so that we can end on time and everyone can get on with their evening. But for those of you who I haven't met, because there hasn't been a whole lot of traffic for the last year at school, I'm Julie Parks. I'm your principal. And I could not be more happy to be having this meeting right now because what this means is we are finally able to open up athletics at our school after a long hiatus. And so this is really a celebration that we get to get started and finally get our kiddos out there playing their sports, engaging with each other, spending time with their coaches who we know are so important in their lives, and beginning that process of transitioning back to school, which I hope will be opening for us very soon as we get into the red tier. So there's a lot to know tonight, and James Lathrop, our athletic director, who's co-hosting, will be helping me communicate all of that. But let's do a couple quick norms before we get started. Yeah. I just went ahead and muted everybody for right now, but you will be able to unmute yourself to ask questions when we open up for that. So don't worry about that at all. We're going to go ahead and begin today with talking about some of the guidelines and questions that might be coming up for you. And then we'll transition into some breakout rooms in our individual sports teams so you can talk to your coaches more directly about the things you can expect in the upcoming weeks. So at the end, we'll be taking questions throughout. I will be monitoring the chat. So please feel free to enter questions in that space and I'll do my best to answer. Before we get started in the logistics of doing athletics during a pandemic, I do want to reground us in some of our values here at Miramonte High School. So when we talk about athletics, we generally talk about access, development, and excellence as our tiered approach for our students in participating in our athletic teams. You can see on this visual here, we've added one more layer to that, and that is safety, because as we begin to open up sports and celebrate all that comes with that, we will be looking at our safety protocols and maintaining those protocols at the highest level possible. We want to keep the risk to our students and to our coaches low as we're able to engage in and participate in our sports. That being said, we also want access to as many students as possible. We're very excited to begin these first sports that are able to be played in the purple tier. And so our kids can get started right away and we don't have to wait any longer. Many of the sports that we're starting with had spring seasons last year that did not get to compete. So we know that for some of our athletes, this is really a double celebration to finally get to begin after missing a season last spring as well. When students are out on the field or in the pool or on the court, what we're really looking for from our coaches and our parents is development of that student athlete, an emphasis on that combined identity that our students have when they are out there playing. We know that as school-based athletics, we have to balance the athletic experience with the academic experience, and our coaches work really hard to make sure that they are communicating with our students to make sure that they know what's going on in terms of workload, and we provide our students the ability to put school first, but get support that they need also on their teams. And lastly, we do want to compete at the highest level we can. Competition this season is going to look a lot different than what you would typically see. But we do want our students to feel like they can achieve excellence out there. And so that is also the goal of our teams when they are playing in their athletic events. So with that, I'll hand it over to our athletic director, James Lathrop, and he's going to start taking you through a lot of different protocols and information around sports in a pandemic.
Yeah, everyone, thanks. I really appreciate you guys being here. Like Julie, I'm very excited to get sports started. Today being the first possible day we could do it. And so we'll have our sports teams out in the pool, on the fields tomorrow, getting on the golf course and such courts, tennis courts to kick off the season. And so the sports that we're starting with are those that we're able to play in our purple tier. Well, Contra Costa County is in that purple tier for COVID. And so we'll keep track and continue to monitor our county guidelines. And hopefully, as we move through here, will allow us to start other sports as we progress from the purple tier to the red tier to the orange tier and the yellow tier. Now, the hard part, of course, about this kind of model is we don't know exactly when those things will happen. So we have some, some guesses we can make about when we might go from purple to red, red to orange, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, we're just gonna have to wait and see as that progresses. So you can see which sports might be coming, and we'll be communicating with you through your coaches and through the school constant contact, and try to put out as much information as possible. And of course, posting things on the website so that you guys can find the information you're looking for. And hopefully we get to add all these sports this year during the school year. But we're excited to start with our purple tier sports, and we're really focusing on cross country, boys tennis, golf, both boys and girls, swimming and diving. Track and field and girls tennis will start, but they're going to be a little bit behind just based on the competition schedule that the league is developing. So the league is working here to make sure we do this kind of in coordination with the other schools in our league. So I want to shout out to the parents, because I know as soon as like things you find out like, oh, in a week my son or daughter has to start sports, you have to figure out like all the things that you have to do and what do I have to sign and all these things, and it's a lot. And I get that, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to be so flexible with us. There's a lot of meetings we've been sitting through trying to figure out what do we really need to have in place in order to ensure safety for our students and our coaches, and do this in a way that's going to sustain the ability to keep sports going on at Miramonte High School. So that's kind of the goal as we move through this. And some of the things that we have in place are requirements that are there every year. And of course, some are new for 2020, 2021. So I'll go through this. If you have questions, again, put them in the chat, and we'll go into some in a little more detail as we move through here. Okay. The first is the medical clearance. So that's required every year for every student that participates in sports. And those instructions are up on our website, and hopefully our coaches have put them out to you as well. You'll need to upload the forms from Sportsnet. You get a signed by your doctor and stamped by your doctor, and then you upload it back to Sportsnet, and then you should receive an email confirmation. And our assistant, Veronica Erickson, is working every day to keep that updated, so that even if a student isn't quite ready like yet, and they get that up and done probably by like around 2 o'clock tomorrow, they could probably participate, assuming we get it cleared by then, and in their like 3:30 practice kind of thing. So that's something we're working on to continuously update. And if you don't have it done yet, it's okay. I know this was kind of a short notice to get the season going, but your students can't participate in sports, both practices and competitions, until that's done. Our coaches know that. Our coaches have access to the list of those who are cleared. So as soon as that student becomes cleared, then they're able to join in and participate. If you are, if that's the case for your son or daughter, we'd encourage the student to reach out to the coach and just let them know, hey, I'm coming. I'm not cleared yet, but I am participating. Daily screening. So one of the things that's new, of course, for this year is we'll be doing daily screening using the Company Nurse application. And we posted the instructions to this. There's a quick registration process that's required. For most people, using the cell phone is the easiest form of doing this. And it's a daily thing that you do. You click on the link that comes, and you'll get a text message to you in the morning usually, and you click on the link, you fill out a few questions, takes about a minute, and then it should give you a result. Either you passed and you're cleared for the day, or you're not. So if you're cleared for the day, and this is kind of what it will look like, that picture there, the students are simply going to show this to their coach on the way in the door to practice every day. So whether like you're walking in the tennis court, or you're walking up to the track, or you're coming into the golf course or the pool, whatever it is, you're just going to kind of show that to the coach. If a cell phone isn't an option for whatever reason, you can always print out a copy, no problem. And that's going to be generally what's going to happen every day for the students. And it is required that they do this daily in order to participate. There'll also be their name here. I kind of cut that part out, but there'll be their name, and it'll say the student's name, it'll give the date, and it'll say that they're cleared. If they're not cleared, if for whatever reason someone doesn't pass that daily screening, then we're going to ask you what we'll be tracking that, but it would also be very helpful if parents, if you guys will use our attendance line, the Miramonte attendance line, to call in and report that to us, and then administrator will be following up with you. It doesn't mean that you're out of sports forever. It just means that we kind of have to follow the protocols to make sure that everybody's safe and good. And we're asking everybody to not show up if you're feeling and experiencing symptoms that are unusual. So that's our daily screening. And the instructions, again, are on our website, and coaches will be emailing.
Are you listening to this?
Well, okay.
No.
Then the last part is there's 2 pieces of paper that we're going to require that the kids are going to bring, the students will bring and hand to their coach before they can participate. One is the high school sports participation waiver, and this has a copy of our guidelines on one side, and on the other side is the waiver. And so please read through that. It's a COVID waiver, and if you guys have been doing camps or sports, it's kind of similar to what's been used through those. And so we'll need that signed by the parent and the student. And then the other one is the student code of conduct. That is new this year as well. With the focus of the school year as part of the equity plan at Miramonte, the athletic directors worked with administration to develop a new code of conduct that would focus on equity and different things. And it was time for us to kind of look at that code of conduct. So that's new for this year, and we're hoping that students will look over that code of conduct, and both parents and students will sign that. So that's there. And I'm not seeing the chat, but Julie, if there's questions that we should be addressing, is there anything we could do now, or you want to wait?
Yeah, so just a question about if you submitted the medical clearance in August, do you need to do anything?
No, well, I should say, if it got passed, then no. And hopefully you got that email, but it was August, so you might have lost that email by now. You can always log back into Sportsnet and check. And if you're really unsure, you can always check with your coach, is probably the best way. They have access to the list and know who's cleared and who's not. So to access Sportsnet, again, you're going to go to the instructions that either have been sent to you by your coach, or they're up on our website. And so you can find them there. Okay. And yeah, there was a link. I sent out a bad link. You're right. Some of you guys are noting on, and so we'll send that out again, but your coaches will also be following up and sending out that waiver form again for you. So hopefully you guys can find that, and I can try to actually paste that into the chat in a second here, so that you guys have that. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. If we have more questions, we can always go back and address some of these. So what we need to really focus on tonight for a majority of is our guidelines. And again, the guidelines are there, and we'll put that in the chat so that people can see it. But these are our adopted guidelines that are new for this year, and it, again, will be on the backside of the waiver form that we're going to ask people to sign. And so I'm going to put that in the chat if I can get the link up. All right, that's going to come. And so I'll go through a few of them. I'm not going to go into detail about every single one tonight, but I think we'll go through the ones, and if you guys have more questions, we could absolutely answer them for you tonight. The first one is one sport at a time. Students are expected to only participate in one sport at a time, and that would apply to both school sports, sports at Miramonte, as well as sports that they might be doing through a Miramonte sports camps or outside club sports. It's important that we're following the guidelines, which are students are supposed to be a part of only one cohort, sports cohort at a time. And so that's in agreement with our county guidelines. And so we'll be tracking that. We are expecting everyone to follow that, to keep our teams as safe as possible and make sure that that everybody is doing what it takes to allow for safety for all our students. And so I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up that link. So I'll put that link right there. That's the link to the full list of guidelines that you guys can see. So that's that. Physical distancing and masks. By now, of course, we're used to this, but we're maybe not used to it through sports and on campus. So the basic rule is for students to show up. When they show up, they have to have a mask on when they're on campus. They must keep distance from all other students. And the reason purple tier sports are purple tier sports is because they can be done while maintaining distance, and many of them while wearing masks as well. So we'll expect that physical distancing, and the coaches will design practices and drills and such that will allow students to maintain distance throughout practice, throughout training. When it comes to masks, we're expecting that students are wearing masks at all times, unless there's like extreme exertion that would be needed for cross country. Like you're really, running hard and you're really breathing hard, then it would be appropriate to take off that mask only if you're able to maintain distance between students and coaches and such. So that's the guidelines for the physical distancing and masks. For shared equipment, we do allow shared equipment to a degree, but shared equipment must be limited. And our coaches have been doing this through our sports camps. And so I know a lot of them are well practiced at this, but equipment should be shared only within a small group of students and only done in a way that allows for distancing to be maintained while sharing that equipment. And so our coaches know those rules and have developed ways to allow for that for our teams. And so there's, the students will see as they go through that they might see, slight differences. Tennis is going to keep their balls in a bucket and it get limited to a certain group and so on and so forth. So there's definitely changes the coaches are making in terms of what happens during practice that's going to allow for that. All right. Training cohorts. Within the larger team, a coach might put students into training cohorts. It kind of depends on the size of the team and what practice looks like, but very likely for just about all our sports, they'll be kind of in groups and operate through practices in these groups. They're not going to change every day, which might be different than a normal year where we have sports. And, if you're performing well, you might, kind of move up to a different group and get to challenge yourself in a different way. We want to make sure we're safe. So there'll be these training cohorts that will be developed to maintain safety and keep groups together while they're maintaining distance. And that will be done. And there can be changes to these training cohorts from time to time, but probably not on the daily basis that maybe we're used to with sports. So just understand that your son or daughter probably will likely kind of be with a group of other students. The size kind of depends on the team and what they're doing, but we try to use the county guidelines that we have been for our camps, about 14 students per group, per cohort, as our guide. Drop off and pick up. We're expecting that students, if they're dropped off by a parent, the parents are not allowed to stay around. So people need to be dropped off, and then the parent would be leaving so that the student would have their mask on and go to practice. Also, the guidelines don't allow for carpooling unless someone else is in that household. So please be aware of that. And this is all part of the safety guidelines through our county and what we've adopted and what we've been using with our camps to maintain safety. We also are expecting students, when you come to campus, not to be marching through the school or taking the least direct route to your sports facility. So try to find a direct route, try to make sure that you're distanced from other people while you're walking to the sports facility that you'll be using, and just maintain basic distancing and safety guidance. There's no gathering in parking lots. For the students that drive, we understand they can come, they can park their car and go to practice, but they're not allowed to gather outside of their cars in groups, both before practice and after practice. So essentially come, if you're a little early, sit in your car, wait for the time where it's appropriate to go to practice, and then you'd go to your practice. When it's time to leave, you go to your car, you leave. No gathering. And then general practice outside of the team activity is to abide by county and state guidance. And I should probably go back. I can see there's some questions coming in about one sport at a time. And let me probably clarify a couple things, which is questions about, what happens if another sport comes up? Like, for instance, I'm playing tennis, but I want to join the baseball team, and we get to that red tier. There will be times where that will be allowed. We're going to make sure that our coaches are aware and that I'm aware, mostly for safety purposes, so we can track where people are going and what's going on. So if you're someone who, wants to move sports, or we do have a couple sports that are, we don't have space for everyone that's there. So if you're cut from the team or not selected for a team, and I want to try a different sport, is that allowed? Absolutely, yes. But we can only do one at a time. So you can't try out for two sports concurrently and then decide. You kind of have to pick one, go through that process. Our coaches are aware of this, and it's similar to how things are in a normal year. So we're ready to take those things into account and ultimately try to, again, go back to that value of access. We want students to access sports. So that's that. Students are in both track and cross country. So track practice will likely start soon, but one thing that's happened at a league level is we've decided to push off track competition. So if a student is participating in cross country, the cross country competition season will not coincide with the track competition season. So they can do both and not miss anything in terms of competitions. And I'll let Coach Tristan address any more specifics around that. Julie, any other questions I'm missing that maybe we should stop and address right now?
Yeah. Okay. I've been assigning people into breakout rooms, so that's why I might be making a strange face in the Zoom as I'm looking at that. Real quick reminder, if you haven't updated your name to reflect the sport that you would like to go to a breakout room with, please go ahead and do that. Depending on your device, that'll look a little bit different, but on most computers, if you're working off a computer, there are 3 little dots in the upper corner of your screen with your face on it that you can click on to rename yourself with the name of your sport first. If it's tennis or golf, please specify boys or girls, and I'll try to get everybody in those rooms. In terms of questions that are coming up, James, a lot about single cohorts.
Yep.
And so that came up a lot. And then also access to the links, which I think are all on the page that you have posted currently on our website. Is that true?
Yeah, everything got posted. We updated the website today or yesterday. So if you go to our website, it's all there. And I did put the link to the guidelines there. So I'll put that in again, and we can, and your coaches have this too. So I appreciate, I know we are, it's all coming kind of fast and furious, and there's some new things for this year. So I appreciate you guys' flexibility as we go through this. Yeah, so to the one sport at a time, ultimately, again, we want students to be able to access sports. So we'll figure out what that means. But yes, they're only able to do one sport, whether that's a high school sport, a club sport, at a time. Okay, so they do have to pick, and that would be kind of normal. I mean, most students aren't doing more than one thing at a time, typically during the school year. And if there's more specific questions to like your son or daughter or students, if you have a specific question that's, then we can definitely try to help answer those. And some of these questions I can see coming in, we're going to get to later in the presentation. So just hold tight. Okay. So there's some sport specific modifications that we're making. For instance, cross country students, of course, will run off campus at times. in order to get the distance running that they need for training. They're expected to follow those guidelines at all times, even when they're out off campus. Golf, students are training off campus all the time. So just kind of remembering that no carpooling to the site is allowed by the district. And masks must be worn at all times, because we don't really see physical exertion unless, I don't know, the coach has something going on that they would allow for it. Then masks must be worn at all times, and understand that kind of like our rules have to be followed, and any rules for the site that you're at, for instance, a golf course.
Cross country golf doesn't really relate to you.
And then swimming and diving, swimmers wear their masks, and of course they can't wear it in the pool. So as soon as they're about to get in the pool, they take that off. And I know our swim coaches are experts at doing that by now. And we're moving forward with students in groups of 3 per lane. So the swim coaches are working on designing practices with that in mind, and they're able to maintain distance safely doing that. And again, your coaches will address anything else that they have in mind for their practices and training. Okay, so a couple more things before we can really open up for more questions, but the athletic contribution. One thing that we ask our families that are participating in sports to do is contribute to the team's athletic contribution. One, to make sure everyone understands athletic contribution funds each program's essential items, and especially this year with short seasons being shortened, we are really looking to make sure that these are the most essential items. We're not getting new uniforms this year or anything. And if you guys could refrain from doing that, I know that's okay. So that would include like the coaches' stipends, their competition, the cost of competition for teams, though that is a lot less than the normal years because of the limitations around competitions, and then team activities. So that's what's going on there. Okay. Let me see here. I'm going to stop that for a second, see if we can reload that. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Great. And then the Boosters Club, of course, funds equipment, and they're being great at that. And athletic contributions will be posted up on the web store later this week. We're in the process of finalizing those budgets, so we appreciate your flexibility and patience with that, and those will be up later this week. Likely you'll get an email from your team about that and when you can go access that. Okay, popular question last few days has been around athletic PE as sports are returning. So you sophomores and juniors, that's primarily what we're looking for towards. Eligible students for the semester of independent athletic PE will be contacted by their counselor. And some of you guys have already been contacted by your counselor to be enrolled in the athletic PE program. It's really only applying to juniors right now who are in need of graduation requirements and have designated on their course signups that they anticipated participating in athletic PE. Our counselors are on top of this. Like, they really know what's going on and what you need as a student in terms of graduation requirements. So they'll be working on that and getting students enrolled into Canvas for independent athletic PE. Options for sophomores are being worked out right now by the district. So more to come on that that will be determined soon. Okay. And John Grigsby, Mr. Grigsby is our point of contact for athletic PE. So if you have questions about athletic PE, then you can contact him or your school counselor. Be happy to answer questions about that. Okay, before we go to breakout rooms, any other questions that are coming in? Julie, feel free to jump in if there's more that's been in the chat.
There was a question about guidelines if a player or coach catches COVID during the season.
Yeah, so if a player or coach catches COVID during the season, then we will step in and proceed with the guidelines. Right now, I think off the top, Julie, you might know off the top of your head, but I think it's a 10-day sit out from when symptoms occurred is what we're working with right now. And of course, guidelines could change as they constantly are, but we would be taking the necessary precautions to remove coaches and students as needed from training to make sure that everybody's safe.
And then there's questions around cross country and track and just the overlap of sports. But I think that we were able to clarify most of that the idea is the maximum accessibility to our kids. So if there is some overlap and we need to work with that, we will try our best to do that. And cross country and track have been designed in such a way so that the track competitions will not begin until later in the season, so that students who might be participating on cross country can start with that and then transition over to the track team and still have all the access to competition.
Okay. And if you guys are getting questions, I mean, hopefully your coaches can help answer them tonight as well. But if questions come up, we're going to continue to work and try to get more information out to you guys. I appreciate again that this is all happening rather quickly, and we're providing a lot of information to you guys very quickly, and having to process that and understand it is a challenge. So again, we want everyone to be safe. We want everyone to access sports and get all the benefits that come with participating in a high school sport. So we're excited for that. And if there's questions along the way, we'll do our best to answer them for you and get out more information as it becomes relevant to you guys. Okay.
Okay, are we ready for breakout rooms, James?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so what I've done is I've grouped cross country and track into the same breakout room. It's a rather large group of folks for that one, but since we have overlapping coaches, I think that having one space for that will help you get your questions answered. Our immediate opening is really happening with cross country, with track beginning with practices first. But Tristan will be able to answer questions pertaining to both of those sports in that room. So that's a big space. I just want to give people a heads up of what you'll find in there. I have a room for boys golf and girls golf, swimming, boys tennis, and girls tennis. There are some other folks who named some other sports that they're playing, and I'm going to keep you in this room, and James and I might be able to answer your questions for those sports if we don't have coaches present. If you haven't renamed yourself, go ahead and do that, but I'm going to open up the breakout room. And for those of you who might be struggling to find the space to rename yourself, don't worry, you'll be able to give me that shout out and I'll get you where you need to be. So I'm going to open breakout rooms now, and we'll start moving into those spaces and making sure everybody is